I don't believe we need a quorum to officially start the meeting when we know people are on the way. So that's how I read the bylaws. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Let's welcome you all to the March 7th operating budget review for the Board of Estimate and Tax. Madam Clerk, may I ask you to call a roll, please?
Rilling. Mr. Abrams.
Here.
Mr. Camacho. Mr. Constant.
Here.
Mr. Gilleret.
Here.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Oh,
Mr.
I'm sorry.
Casimis. Mr. Casimis and Miss Yang. Currently, we have 3 and we do not have a quorum.
Okay. As I understand the bylaws for an operating budget review meeting, a quorum is not required. That said, I know Ms. Yang is on her way and will be joining in progress, and I believe the mayor will as well. Out of respect for our department head, Tom, I'd like to suggest that we go ahead and get started, and that way we can catch anybody up who we need to as we go along.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, Ed, this is Troy. Can I say something before the meeting starts? Quick question, Tom. We're looking at this obviously tough budget, and I know the budget that everybody was asked to do was no new hires. Did we ever look at layoffs, some type of staff reduction in order to help out? Because in the corporate world, as Ed and I and a few of us know, I mean, that's just curious if that has been. Was that considered in when should have asked this at the beginning, but kind of hearing this from a lot of people. So
yeah, no, it was not just layoffs, but hiring freezes. I mean, any given department has a number of openings. And it was considered. I think both of those things were considered, freezes and reductions. But the reality is you really have to, you need to cut $1 million before you see anything significant on, the actual impact to the mill rate in the median tax bills. 100,000 here or 200,000 there equates to $1 or $2 per tax bill. It's really not significant. So the idea was floated, but it hasn't gone any further as of yet. I haven't heard any conviction of a no or a yes either way, but I think it's still lingering out there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Also, let the record show that Ms. Yang joined the meeting at 6:35 p.m.
The mayor's on his way.
And I think it helped last night just for that quick review of the column headers for the folks who haven't seen it before. So if
yes, please.
If the board is okay sitting through the that 45 seconds one more time, I'd like to start with that.
Tom, before you start with that, now that the mayor is here, Mr. Mayor, any opening remarks for this evening's meeting?
Thank you, Ed. No, just what I said last night and the night before, that we know this is a particularly difficult budget year because of the reval and the shift from commercial to residential. And we've had to cut and use the knife to really slice the budget down to as much as we possibly can. And I want to thank not only Tom Ellis and Agnes Cowie, but also the people that helped out in getting this done. And, especially the department heads who listened to what I recommended as far as cutting numbers of people and as far as keeping the budget low. They've done a great job and tried to do everything they possibly can to keep our taxes low. And as I said, we've got some tough decisions to make, and I know that we'll make them. But also thank you to the Board of Estimate and Taxation members who serve and who work with me to try to make it happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, Tom, now if you want to kind of go through the report and what we're looking at, that'd be great.
Share my screen here. I think I can blow that up a little bit.
Oh, I do want to say, I was on, my calendar said it was a Teams meeting. I logged into Teams and Sherelle Harris was there.
Oh,
So I don't know how that happened. That's why I asked Irene to send me the link because I asked if we were on Teams or Zoom. I was surprised to see that my calendar said Teams.
yeah, there's a glitch when you do the Zoom calendar. It it sends a Zoom link, and then at the bottom of it, there's a default, sort of like your signature on email. There's a default for a Teams link. So we try to remember to delete that, but apparently that didn't happen this time. Sorry. All right, so for the department heads and chiefs and members, I'm just going to walk you through the column titles here. I know there's a lot of data, but what we have here is over on this side, 22, 23 actuals. I do have actuals going all the way back to 2019. I can unhide those columns very easily. So if we're having a discussion where you'd like to look at the trend over a few more years of time, that is easily doable. Here's the fiscal 24 approved budget, the fiscal 24 revised, which is really reflective of 24 plus the rollovers that we do every October. And then here are the 24 actuals through the end of February, and then the full year forecast. And I just straight line this very simply, divide the actuals by the 8 months we've been through, and then multiply it by 12 to get a full year. And then this column is the variance between your revised budget. So in this case, it'd be 73,590 versus the full year forecast, 366. So if everything holds true to current spending trends, we would be $224 under budget for the year. Here's the 25 requested, the original department request that came in back in October. 25 recommended. That's a combination of the finance team and the mayor and Tom Livingston making recommendations. And the reason, and then this is the final one. This is the one that we're working off of tonight. And the reason it says no hires, and let me just get rid of these things here. It says no hires is when we first got the grand list numbers and bounced it off the operating budget recommended. We knew that we needed to start scrubbing right away. So the first thing we went with was a no new hire scenario. So citywide, the request for new hires was 19, and none of those are included in this recommendation. And then over here on the right-hand side, the difference between the 25 recommended, that's this column, versus the 24 approved, which is that column. And then that gives you your variance in dollars, and then the variance in percentage. So recall the mayor's initial guidance back in the fall that he wanted to see departments at or pretty near 3%. This is the number that we're looking at when we compare to the 3%. Any questions on that?
Nope.
All right,
Thank you
Lamont.
again.
Sorry.
Thank you again for the explanation, Tom. You're
All right.
getting better at it each time you do it.
I've been practicing it. Lamont, you have the floor.
Yes, sir. And Tom, I just want to clarify, I know you referenced the percentage, but I am accurate when you scroll down that the entire department increases to 0.8%, correct?
You are correct.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Yep, there it is. Right
So
there.
good. So
0.
I'm ready to start whenever you are.
So you are welcome to go. So
Great.
what we've been doing in the past day is just addressing any significant variances.
Sure.
Yep, and then fielding questions from the board members. We like to try to scroll through each department just so everybody has a chance to look and ask any questions as we go along. But if you want to start with any opening,
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
I do. Thank you. And good evening, members of the Board of Estimation and Taxation. As you know, I'm Lamont Daniels. I serve as the city's Chief of Community Services for the Community Services Department. I think Sherelle will be joining us because, as the mayor pointed out, she used the Microsoft Teams link as well. So I'll be joined by Sherelle Harris, our Library Director, Deanna Diamore, our Health Director, and Anna Vivian Estrella, unfortunately, will not be with us. So I'll be able to hopefully answer any questions you have that pertain to her. So I do have some prepared remarks to that, if it's okay to just share. Together, we make up the Community Services Department. a vital pillar in Norwalk's local government. We comprise of the Health Department, Human Services Department, and the Public Library Departments to address the various aspects of social well-being and health for the city's residents. Has been noted, I've been watching the meetings as well. This budget request represents one of my most challenging during my tenure here at the city of Norwalk. Like my colleagues and all, we have made tough decisions such as reallocating staff back to part-time status, decreasing our part-time budget in the library significantly by $100,000. And to Tom's point, adhering to the mayor's request of no new hires. I do want to thank my team and their staff for their hard work. And also want to express my thanks to the mayor for his support through this budgetary process. I know has been easy, and I know that we are working diligently to ensure certain positions remain, particularly under the community resource hub. I also want to highlight that our entire budget request for the upcoming fiscal year represents a modest 0.8%. This is an increase from last year's budget. With that, most of our increases are either contractual obligations in our departments, like equipment and supplies, and wages and salary. This measured increment reflects our commitment to fiscal responsibility while ensuring that we meet the evolving needs of our community. This budget also reflects no new programs, no new initiatives, as we all have to come together collectively to make the tough decisions. So in closing, the Community Services Department remains committed to upholding its mission of providing support and delivering essential services in the health, human services, and public libraries. Our collaborative efforts aim to enhance the quality of life for the residents of Norwalk. And so with that, I'm here to provide further insight and answer any questions you may have regarding our budget proposal, joined again by Deanna and Sherelle specifically for their programs. Thank you for your time and consideration.
All right,
Thank you, Lamont.
shall I just start scrolling?
Please, one really quick question on the early childhood program. For the first time ever, advertising is in that request. Again, it's a very small amount of money, but is that something that is a requirement? Why is it showing up as a line item for the first time? Lamont, you may be on mute.
I did the mute thing. It's not, we have requested this back in fiscal year 2023. So we have used 1122 back then. And, you know, we continue, kids are still being born, and this fundings is to promote our early learning. So through Mary Oster, we purchase books and different learning opportunities for our parents that Mary oversees throughout the city of Norwalk. I'm on daddy duty today, so please forgive me for the.
That's okay. But Lamont, what you said and what the line item is a little different the way here. You talked about the purchase of books and things like that. I read that as an advertising and promotion line item. And again, just being in that field, right? $1,500 to do advertising.
Well, we're purchasing
really
books, so we have the early childhood brand on the book. So that's the way of how we promote the resources. So the book is the draw. Then we have all the promotion stuff as part of the book.
Thank you.
And then we have a little bag that says early childhood learning, when Mary does her programming throughout the city.
Thank you. Now I understand.
Sorry about that. I didn't make that clear. Got distracted.
All right, shall we just commence scrolling? So that was early childhood right there. And here is fair rent. Pretty straightforward, pretty significant jump percentage-wise, but not dollar-wise, in training and education. And a similar story with the machinery, equipment, and rent. Overall, 2.4%, $7,100.
Yeah, Tom, unfortunately, your screen share is not scrolling again.
Okay, then I will start again.
So if you recall, for those that have been on BET for some time, we did not have a full-time fair rent officer. And I want to thank the mayor and the council, and we now have an ADA specialist. This was a deduction from previous years at one point there were 3 staff members. So again, making those tough decisions, we are able to fulfill our duties as a fair rent office. It's now state law, while Norwalk should feel pride that we've had the fair rent office for over 20 years. Now it's a mandate from the state. So we do require legal support when the cases go to a hearing. So that number does fluctuate. And then we want to encourage that our fair rent officer and our ADA specialist stay up to date with current trainings and certifications so that we are making sure we are aware of the best practices as we think about making all of our city buildings accessibly as the resources there, but more importantly, ensuring that our fair rent officer is fully knowledgeable of the work that they do, which we are at capacity in terms of the many residents we serve who are experiencing increases where the fair rent office works to look at that.
Mhm. Mhm.
I have a
Yeah.
question on the other contractual services. It seems like the 2024 actuals is about 14,000, but you jump back up to $29,000. Is there a reason for that?
Yes, Mayor. So that was a rollover. So again, the attorney is bills us. So depending on if there's a hearing, depending on the severity of the case, we do draw down that funding. And so that money is used for that. We did roll over money previously because the attorney did more billable hours based on the need per year to year. So that does fluctuate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
And then similarly, Lamont, if you look at for the department in total, the forecasted actuals for this year, it's going to come in at roughly 256 if Tom's projections are right, and it jumps up to 300,000 for next year. Is that because the actuals are actually the way we've done it? There's more funding that's going to hit in the last 2 months of the year. It just optically, it looks like that budget's going up pretty significantly based on forecast actuals for this year.
I'm sorry, where are you looking at again?
So if you look at the spreadsheet column T, row 36, you'll see the forecasted actuals for fair rent are going to come in at about 255.8 versus a budget request of 300. Okay. Again, I'm looking at forecast actuals versus a comparison to the revised full year budget that you had planned.
Yes,
but in
so
a tight, yeah.
I'm looking at it as well. So let me just see where there's a difference. Give me one moment.
One of the differences is what the mayor called out and other contractual services.
Yes, so it could be those. Again, we're in March, so we don't know if there will be hearings coming up. We don't know to the extent that we may have to get legal counsel on the fair rent cases.
Okay,
Right, 'cause
and
I
then
see that
another
29,000 is right there.
Yep, and then another area seems to be in part-time wages, where you had a budget this year of 55 and your forecasted actuals is 43.
Right, this is Bill, there was an open position, so Bill has not done a full year yet.
Okay.
So that's where you see the over budget, but he's here full part-time in a sense for his hours, so we definitely will make good on his part-time as our new ADA coordinator.
Okay. Thank you.
Ed, I've got somebody emailing me saying that they're in the waiting room waiting to get in. I don't see anybody in the waiting room, so I
Is
just
that Sherelle?
I think she's on Teams.
no, it's David Lamont. So I
Okay.
just
That's David from Youth Services. Can you put him over? And I just called Sherelle, so she's supposed to be signing off teams and coming into here. Is Sherelle in yet, Tom?
I don't see her on here.
All right, let me call her again. I told her to switch over to Zoom.
So Ed, yeah, I don't know if you can see anybody in the waiting room. I can't because I've got the shared screen going.
Oh.
Yes.
I just forwarded my link to David, so hopefully he'll get that.
Deanna, can
Yeah.
you send it to Sherelle as well?
Yeah, I sent a link to him too. I don't know.
Sherelle said it says
I don't
waiting for
see
host.
anyone in the waiting room, Tom.
Okay, all right. And we do have someone raising their hand. We are not taking public comments. If you have something to say, please send a message. We will get to it if time permits.
Send it to my email.
Deanna, can you send it to her work email, please? Thanks.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay. Let's go ahead and keep going then.
All right, so
Thank you.
on to human services. $10,000 increase, 5.5%. Vast majority in these three line items right here. Membership, advertising, telephone. And $1,000 in office supplies. Lamont, you want to take that away, or is that Deanna?
Sure, yeah, and I spoke with Anthony. So, I mean, one of the things you'll see that hasn't been drawn down is advertising promotion. As you all know, we did a significant branding change, and so we definitely plan to use it. We were just waiting to use all of our city seal business cards. For example, we have not reflected over. We have not yet reflected to the new logo on any of our letterhead, business cards, and so forth. So so some of these increases that are still showing in terms of not drawn down, we do plan to, and we plan to do that by the close of the year.
Okay. Anybody have questions on this department?
Yeah, first and foremost, I want to say great job on the 0.8% increase. I'm just curious about the membership dues. That looks like a new increase. What happened there?
So right, so as I pointed out, the ADA coordinator is now with us. So you know, we want to make sure they get certified to participate in any of the statewide ADA. Some of them are costs, some of them require trainings, and so you'll see an increase in that. Now we have a part-time, steady ADA coordinator. And I think from last time, we did increase the budget a little bit for Carlos, again, so that he can, what I continue to do is just make sure that, I think from maybe 2 years ago, I mentioned when we brought in the fair rent officer, you know, we couldn't find no one with all fair rent, you know, knowledge. So part of our commitment was to ensure that he has the training to make sure he does his job well. So we're always continuously supporting, whether it's a membership. We do also purchase law books as well in the updates from the state. So those fees are all compiled within that.
Additional questions on human services?
Did Sherelle come over yet?
Sherelle is on.
Great,
David,
okay, good.
David is still trying. I sent them the link again.
No, I think I'm on now,
Oh, there
Tom.
you are.
Can you hear
Okay.
me? Yeah,
Yeah,
the
there
link
you
I
are.
had was bad. I had to get in on a different link, sorry.
All right, well, your timing is
Technology.
your timing is perfect because youth services is up.
Okay,
And what we're
So
doing, David, I'll just give a brief overview and then they can address, the board members will review and ask you any relevant questions. So in this case, youth services is up under 3%, met the target, vast majority of it in the personnel services, contractual increases, and everything else is flat year over year. Anything you'd like to add, David?
I don't have anything to add. I do want to thank the mayor, who last year we had some positions that were part-time that was increased to full-time for our care coordinators, which we badly needed, and we're appropriately staffed now, and you know, I'm very much about working within our means and not asking for things we don't need, and so we're in good shape, I think, for the next year with the status quo.
Okay. Any questions on youth services? Okay, let's keep going then, Tom.
All right.
Thanks, David.
Sure, thank you.
All right, just a quick administrative item, Lamont. KDAC, can I get rid of that? Looks like it's been dormant for a while. Any idea what that is?
Where are you, Tom?
I'm on row 72. It says Youth Services KDAC, CADAC. Looks like an acronym for something.
Oh, I probably need to ask David if we could follow up offline.
Not a big deal. I'm always
Yeah.
looking for trim lines though.
Yeah, I get it. That's certainly.
So you're up next, Lamont, Chief of Community Services. You are down 7.5%, largely what's driving your overall 0.8% increase as a division. And that looks to be mostly in the other contractual services. And why don't you take us through it at this point?
Sure. So you'll see that we've made some significant changes in our grants program. Part of our discussion with the mayor, while we support critical needs, we also work with our nonprofits that how to help them leverage city dollars so then they can build sustainability. The 1.5, there are a lot of obligations in there. For example, $500, we are obligated to support the Head Start federal program. We also have a contractual commitment to the senior center of $390, the mayor's summer use of $100,000. So you'll see that compile of 1.5, and we always use that 1.5. And for those that, I'm not sure how many of you all how long you've been on BET, we moved like that $500,000 over from the BET where you all would give out small grants. So now it's under my department. So we just moved that item. I did not request an increase.
I think I might have heard it wrong. I think you said $500 for Head Start. It's actually 500,000.
500,000.
Yeah, I think you might have said 500.
I may have, Mayor. It's definitely 500,000. And I can go over more detail. For example, the mayor, we wanted to support our nonprofits given ARPA because many of the smaller nonprofits weren't eligible. So we launched a mini grant program of small nonprofits who had an operating budget of under $1 million, which was very successful. And this budget allows us to do it again to just build capacity. As you know, some of these smaller nonprofits, they are the boots on the ground. And so this program was designed specifically for them. We work with them, we build capacity. We partner with the Fairfield County Community Foundation that provides training and learning for them so that through this $10,000 grant they can better position themselves, leverage, and also build capacity so they can go for additional dollars. So the city makes this initial investment to our nonprofits, which are the safety net for our community.
Okay. Any questions on this department from anyone? Okay, well, keep rolling along, Tom.
Yep, moving along on to health administration. We have Deanna waiting.
Deanna's here.
Patiently. And her overall increase is 10%. And most of that looks to be in insurance premium, and there's a story behind that as there is every year. Go ahead, Deanna.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So as Lamont stated, we've worked to make cuts based on the direction of the mayor and finance, based on our original requested budget. We've gone back to the part-time eviction and relocation coordinator that we originally requested as full-time, and we've worked with the state health department to receive a no-cost extension to one of our grants so that we're able to fund our public health nurse that we had originally requested in this budget. We'll be able to fund that position for an additional year so that we can continue to provide critical childhood immunization services, childhood lead poisoning case management, and tuberculosis case management and treatment. We continue to utilize both city funding and grant funding to support our programs and services. Last fiscal year, we received about $1.2 million in grants, which is about 25% of our revenues. As we worked on putting our original request together for this operating budget, we did look at each line item and to see where we could find savings. So while we do have requests for additional costs, we did make several reductions in requested line items compared to this current fiscal year that totaled to about $1,000. As Lamont shared earlier, most of our increases are related to staff wages and contract obligations. One area where we did request additional funding is in health administration. One of these accounts, it's 0120115258. That's for subscriptions to Smartsheet, which is one of the programs that we're utilizing in our efforts to meet the recommendations of the city's efficiency study and to improve our use of technology in our programs and services. And we also have another, as Tom mentioned, the request for the insurance premium there. That's related to the WIC program. And then continuing to be able to provide that in Norwalk.
So, Deanna, can you say more about that? Because again, right, just looking at everything, you know, I see it was in the FY24 budget, but there's been no spend to date on it. Why does it keep showing up if we're not spending against it?
So we will be by the end of this fiscal year. So we've been expending off of the state grant. And so the funding that we were receiving from the state is not keeping up with the increased wages that are contractually obligated through, the grants union, as well as the medical benefits that have been increasing. And this is something that we've discussed with the mayor in the past, and Lamont, of course, about, if we want to continue to offer the WIC program through the health department and have the location in Norwalk, we would look to see if we can provide additional funding through the city budget to offset some of those costs.
And just so you know, also, we have advocated under Deanna's leadership to the state, and they kind of told us, this is what you get. And, to Deanna's point, our commitment, I think the other piece is important to know that if we don't keep it, we're not guaranteed that this service will remain in Norwalk. They will actually go out to bid. And, to Deanna's point, and we've had conversations with the mayor, we feel very strongly we want to keep this service in the health department, specifically in Norwalk, so our residents have this service for them, as opposed to potentially traveling outside of Norwalk to be served.
And if they had to travel outside of Norwalk, Lamont, where would they have to travel to?
It depends where it depends where it depends who Optimus selects as a new vendor.
Okay. Any thoughts from others on this?
I know there's a 10% increase, but if you look at the numbers, the number is not that high. It's only, $77,000 above, and I think Deanna explained it pretty well.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, any other questions for Deanna? All right, let's keep cranking, Tom.
Yeah, so the next one is it's building management. This really it falls under Lamont's world, but he really has no control over that. This is mostly the building management folks, Neil Rennie and his team, and most of these line items are contractual obligations. So there's really not a whole lot of flexibility on these items. So it's a pretty significant increase at 12%. But if you were to look at the other buildings, whether it's the police department and the DPW building, so on and so forth, you will see similar type increases across the board for all the utilities.
Okay, and Tom, your screen share froze again if you're scrolling to that section.
Am I doing a good job of hiding my frustration, or am I losing?
You are. So Neil, while Tom reloads this, everything in here is a contractually committed or contractually required expense increase. Is that a fair way to recap what Tom said?
Okay, there we go. Yes, that's true. So the major items that are kind of fueling the increases is the utilities. Some of our security, it's a small number, but security contracts are up 9%. That's because there was an increase in the living wage and also an increase in their 3% increase in their contract. we're also taking on additional properties over the last year, which is increased. So we picked up a lot of the historical properties. We plan on taking over 3 Belden in the coming fiscal year. In Mill Hill, we took over, right? Mill Hill, Matthews Park. So everything, I would say 98% of the items are contractual. Some of the stuff that's not contractual is repairs and maintenance. A lot of the commodities we deal with and services we deal with have increased significantly. When I say commodities, on the electrical side, all your copper wiring has gone up. All the manufacturing costs have gone up, and hence we had to increase the repair, maintenance of plumbing, electrical, and mechanical somewhat.
Okay. Yeah, Neil, last question for me, and then I'll see if any other member has a question. But all that said, your forecast actuals for FY24 are going to come in right around $158,000 versus the $200,000 budget. Is that a timing issue, or is that a real underrun against budget that we should factor into next year?
So I'm just trying to look at the sheet online. I can't really see it that well. So I'm sorry, what was the question again?
So the question is, you had a budget this year of 205. Your forecasted actuals for this year are looking like 157, with significant underruns in your gas costs and your security costs. Yet you're taking those numbers back up for next year.
Yeah, there's some lag in the billing from utilities.
Okay.
They're usually typically, I would say, 30 to 60 days behind.
Okay.
So it's more of a lag of what hitting a timing variance.
Okay. All right. Other questions for Neil? Okay, then, Tom, let's keep going.
Thank you.
Thanks, Neil.
This is me again.
Okay, unmuted. Yeah, so 4.1% here. Recall my opening remarks about the 19 new hires. One of them was here. That is not included in the recommendation. All set, Deanna, go ahead.
Sure. One thing I want to point out in this division, environmental health and housing, is that we requested funding in 01/20/2120 to pay our staff to rotate on-call coverage over the weekend so that we can be more available and responsive to emergency situations, and to further support our police and fire departments when they need the health department on the weekends. So that is an additional money funding that we did request, and that is included in the recommended budget.
Okay. Questions for Deanna here? All right, seeing none, again, trying not to be too difficult, because at the macro level, the department did so well on being judicious. So really just looking for outlier things that pop out here. So thank you, Deanna.
All right, weights and measures, is that you as well, Deanna?
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
Going then.
Not much to point out here. This is just,
Yeah, you have to scroll down. I don't see it.
Is it frozen?
Yes, it is.
Do you see weights and measures now?
I do now. Yep.
Okay.
Here you'll see the typical increase in wages, and then I think the other increase was related to longevity. An additional payment is due based on contract obligations, and then here I took away $84 and incorporated it within another line item for membership and dues in another division.
Okay. Questions on this department from anyone? Okay. Let's keep going.
Of our community health division, most of the increases are related to step increases and wages, and there's additional funding for some membership and dues, I believe.
Okay. Thank you, Deanna. Did we lose Tom for a minute?
Yeah, my Zoom completely shut down, but didn't happen. Everybody was still on. Well, everybody's still on, obviously. You didn't lose anything, right? So
No, we're good.
other than that
I
shared
believe. Right. Other than the shared screen, we did not lose anything.
Okay, we're back with the shared screen. And
Okay.
we are on to community health.
Yep, we actually did that one, Tom, while you were
Okay.
frozen. No,
All right.
no questions on it,
Lab,
so
we
we can
covered
go
that.
back to the health laboratory.
For the lab, I think the only increase here is due to increase in wages on our part-time employee. Everything else is level funded.
Mhm.
Okay.
Senior services, looks like I can take that out next year.
Yes, that used to be managed by the health department, and now it's a grant that Lamont manages.
Okay.
Hold on. Okay, shared screen back up.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Mhm.
Preventable diseases is my last division. So here you'll see the increase in wages. This is where we had requested additional funding for a full-time public health nurse. But luckily we'll be able to fund that on a grant. This is the one I talked about. We're having the no-cost extension from the state health department that we recently learned about. And then there's some additional funding requested for purchasing vaccines.
And is that last line item, chemical lab medical supplies, Deanna?
Yes, that's correct.
And purchasing additional vaccine, COVID, flu, RSV, something else?
Exactly, COVID. Yep. Because now we have to purchase the vaccines. And this is also to
Okay.
support our travel and adult immunization clinic.
Okay, and is that a shift in cost and purchase? Because again, I just look at that, and for FY24, even though we had a budget of $127,000, the forecasted actuals have been around 68,000. Yet it goes back up to 130.
Yeah, so we most of our vaccine purchases are through purchase orders. So we have I know Tom mentioned encumbrances aren't in this reflection. So we have, I just checked today, about $46,653, not about, it's and 43 cents in purchase orders for vaccines in this account.
Okay, all right. So that number is going to be much closer to the original budget plan then.
It will.
Okay, thank you. All right. Shall we then, Tom, move to the next department, which I guess is
Yeah, we're on to Sherelle with
library.
library. So
Sherelle, I believe you're on mute.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we
we got
can.
you,
Thank
Sherelle.
you.
All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to be here. And of course, you're going to fund everything that I asked for, right? As Lamont pointed out, each of his departments have made concessions. So the library hasn't added any new initiatives, and the full-time requests were removed. The one that I was really concerned about is the custodian position, but we'll try to get by, with adding some part-time staff. And of course, we have to remain diligent in keeping our library technology current, as the other surrounding libraries do. I am a little concerned about the $100,000 cut to the part-time budget. So that's where the concessions were made. We kept our other requests in, but our part-time was reduced by $100,000. So We haven't had an accounts payable person since our, there was an accident with our accounts clerk. I just have to say Titsame's team has been a tremendous help in the interim, trying to get the bills paid. So our budget may not be accurately reflected until we get that position filled. And I just want to point out that our patronage is up since COVID. 2020, 2021, we had 145, 630 people. 2021, 22, our visits went up to 286,566. And 2022, 23, we're at 350,000. So, we may need that part-time budget to, help us with the increased patronage. But for now, I think we should be okay. I'm just a little concerned about that particular cut.
Understood, Sherelle, but we're going to have to look at it and evaluate it as the year goes on. Coming in at down 0.2% is greatly appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions from any of the BET members for Sherelle on library?
Yeah, I noticed an increase. It looks like grounds in the outdoor courts
Mm-hmm.
of 100%. Is that like maintenance or did something break, or what's the reasoning behind that?
That's a contractual obligation for parking. We have a lease with the Eagles fraternity order,
Yeah.
and that's contractual. That's how much they're charging us for parking spaces for our patrons.
And Mr. Constant, this is a new contract.
Okay.
It's been noted in the paper to ensure adequate parking. And so the city has agreed. And so we now pay for that. So that's why you see that new reflection in the budget.
Mm-hmm.
This is Ann Yang. I have a question, which is the increase in security systems. I assume that's an outsourced contracted service. Did you increase the amount of security that's going on?
So I think it's the increase. Oh God, I forget what it's called.
Sherelle, I can talk to that, Sherelle.
Okay.
Yeah, so and it's Guardian Security. It's the same firm that we use here at City Hall and a couple of other facilities. So the arrangement with them is that their rate of pay is tied to the living wage. And this year they obviously, because of the CPI and inflation, the living wage went up considerably. So anybody that uses Guardian then got a revised contract with the increase due to the living wage, and the increase is reflective of that. So from when inflation was low and CPI was low, it wasn't an issue, but now it is.
Understood. So this represents people guards.
Correct. Yeah, these are boots on the ground.
Outside vendor.
Yeah. The company is Orion.
I always want to say Orion. I don't know why.
Tom, as a follow-up, this is Troy. On Ann's question, I assume these contracts are bidded out periodically or for competition.
Yeah, so I think that falls under Neil's jurisdiction, and he watches it pretty close. And I don't know when this current contract is up, but
yeah, I believe we have one more option year with Orion, and then it's bid out every 3 years, typically 3 years, and 2 option years after that, unless there's a problem with service.
And what was their wage? You said what was their wage raise this year, percentage wise?
Yeah,
on the wage side, it's just 3%, but it was the living wage. I'd have to get back to you on that, but it was considerable jump. And
I assume that's a lagging based on inflation, because inflation is down obviously now.
Yeah, they do the calculation once a year, actually in March, so we should be getting the new rates and the new letter.
Oh, okay. Because
later this month,
that number should be much lower for the coming year. Okay, thank you.
Let's hope so.
Okay. Should we move to the last two library departments, because we still have all of operations to get through?
Yeah, so the, Sherelle, I don't know if you can see on my screen if my scroll is working at this point, but it's the main library maintenance and Sono library maintenance.
That falls under Neil as well.
Yeah, 8.1 and 8.4%.
Mhm.
So again, it's all the utilities again, Neil, other than the other repair maintenance. Most of these, or all of them, other than the other repair maintenance line, are contractual.
For sure, yes.
Yeah, it's gonna be a common theme across all the buildings. Utilities, on average are up 9%. The rest is our maintenance, contract is 3%. So, and then again, maintenance, costs are up because of the commodity costs, delivery costs. So when we go
Neil,
through
it's-
each
Neil,
building.
it's just Troy again. On the electricity particularly, I know on the residential side, I look at that every month and I pick the lowest provider on the supply side. Do you have those options also to take a look? And
That's
you
done
hedging?
through,
Hedge-
procurement, once a year, or depending on the contract life. You know, sometimes it'll be a year contract depending on the markets and the look ahead, and sometimes it could be 2 to 3 years.
Oh, so you don't have the flexibility that we have as residents?
We don't.
With regard to supply, electric supply, because I could change that mine every month if I
You
wanted
could,
to.
yes, you could.
So you don't have that option?
We do not. Typically, we'll lock in, again, depending on we typically have somebody that consults with us to give us information whether we should lock in or not lock in. But typically, if we lock in, it's for typically not less than a year.
And you have a hedge, that advisor is giving you hedge advice, maybe, if that's possible or not?
Possible to do like a month by month, or
Well, there's ways to hedge utilities.
Yeah, so
or
they
commodities.
right. Typically, they have a feeling of what the future holds, right? And typically they'll let us know that whether we should lock in at that rate or we should, maybe wait 3 to 6 months to lock in. But typically we rely on that consultant and procurement to make that call.
Yeah, looking at it once a year that's tricky. That's too bad.
As a follow-up, Tom Ellis, do you think you could let us know what the prevailing rate is and what the contract terms are?
Yeah, we're actually, I don't know if you're in it, Neil, but we're having a meeting next Wednesday with Sharon and purchasing, and Lunda to discuss upcoming electric contracts. So, yeah, I can figure out what the current rates are.
Yeah, because I mean, as a resident, I kind of benchmark mine at 25 cents a kilowatt. In the other library maintenance, you have security systems again as line items. How does that differ or tie into the security systems shown above under library admin?
So I don't know if Neil is still on, but one of them.
Go ahead, Sherelle.
Oh, I don't want to steal your thunder. But one of them is for live guards and the other is for the security alarm system.
Okay, so this security systems is probably for the alarm system, but I see that it's gone up from what looks like about $1,900 to your budget is recommended to be $10,000.
Yeah, if you look at it for the main library.
Yeah.
Right here, Sherelle.
Oh, I'm sorry. Not it would be.
I can't see anything. Is this for the guards or for the security alarm?
Would be the alarm systems
For
and
the
it would
alarm system.
in the maintenance, but what was approved, well, in 23, the actual was $3,000, and then 24 approved is $8,300, and now the budget recommended is 10,000. So it's gone up threefold in the course of 2 years.
Sure. And is that the main library? Is that the Neil? Is that the new company that we have? I'm sorry.
If it's anything, again, I don't handle the intrusion side, but the new intrusion side for monitoring and that was much lower than it was in the past. I don't know if you put something else in there for operating, whether there's systems of any kind that maybe you were putting in there.
I didn't add anything.
yeah,
I know we did under the capital budget, we went with a new company for the main library, and we'll be doing that for the South Norwalk Library this year, but that was in capital. I haven't added anything.
Right. They're relatively small dollar figures, but I'd like to leave the security system line item on the main library and the Sono library as open items. And Sherelle, if you could just get back to us with clarity on what's driving the increase, both versus plan this year and versus actual spend this year.
Okay. For sure. Thank you. I will.
Thank you. Any other questions for Sherelle or Neil on these two departments? Again, overall, Lamont, to you and your team, thank you for being so fiscally responsible. You know, you look at the bottom line number, and that's where we need to be as a city right now. It's not below that type of numbers. So thank you. I know there's some variability in the departments and a couple questions here, but on balance, you and your team have done an outstanding job of being fiscally responsible. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
And I do have a quick question because I can't see the screen. Can you just tell me those two lines that you're leaving open?
I can give.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll get them offline.
ahead,
I
Tom.
circled them on my sheet, Sherelle.
Okay.
Just one thing, Troy, Lamont, I just wanted to commend you also for your leadership in running your department and coming in with the numbers you have during these tough times. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Tom, shall we move to the fun of operations?
Okay, yep, team community services, you may drop and on to.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night, Lamont.
Let me just blow this up a little bit. Okay, so before we get started, we'll go down to the bottom line here just to take a quick look and see that Vanessa has come in very close to 3%. She is at 3.2% down here in the lower right. And we will go back up to the top and then take it by section. So we will cover operations, what I call operations first, that's engineering and such. And then we will move on to Neil with the building management and then close with Rec and Parks with Robert Stowers and Ken Hughes. So first up is the operations chief and Vanessa, are you there?
We are all here. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to go over the budget with you guys. Again, we'll have 4 of our divisions tonight. So I think that we have operations, engineering,
For some
Rex
reason,
and.
my
Can you guys hear me?
radio system in the car is not
Yeah,
working, period.
Mayor, you're not on mute.
No,
There we go.
Sorry,
Okay, go ahead,
so we have Rex and Parks and also building facilities. Again, as Tom said, we really work, I have to really commend all the department heads because they worked very hard and tried to find any money that we could to really meet the 3% request. I'll be very honest, we're pretty much where we possible can be. I hope you guys can understand that we cannot find any more ways to do further savings. And I really say that because we went a couple of times back and forth, including not only removing some positions that we request, but also, again, trying to gambling against the future winter, like we did 2 years ago. We reduced our salt money, and we're hoping that we'll be able to get through this winter. So without any further ado, I'm happy to go over the budget. I don't know if you have a specific order that you guys want to go. I'm happy to address any way that you guys prefer.
Yeah, so what we're looking at first is the operations chief department. Maybe we'll just go through a couple of the big things there. A question from me, and then I'll turn it to the rest of the BET. But the transfer to other funds line item, which shows a pretty significant increase year to year. Can you just explain what that is, please? I'm not familiar with what that line item contains.
These are the source fee.
So Ed, you know how as residents, we all pay a sewer fee in our tax bills?
Yep.
Yeah, so this is paying it on behalf of all the city buildings.
I see. Okay. Questions from?
Excuse me, are you sharing your screen? Because I cannot see if you are.
I am. Does anybody see? Oh, what am I?
Yeah, no, you're still sharing as far as I can see, Tom.
So I probably have to change something on my, do you mind maybe, I probably did something on my end.
Do you still see it moving it? Am I still live?
No, you're frozen again.
Okay, I'm gonna stop and then I'll start again. Maybe that'll help Vanessa.
Yeah, now that's good.
Okay. I've got, do you see it now, Vanessa?
Yes, thank you.
The transfer to other funds line.
Yeah, so that will be related to the sewer fees.
And the reason it was so far over budget this year, I mean, you're looking at if we believe the forecast and even the actuals to date, you had a budget of 400,000. Actuals to date were 600 and some thousand, and a forecast of over $1 million there. What's driving such a large variance to what was originally budgeted?
I do not know why that number was that high originally, to be honest. I don't know if it was just carryover from the past years.
And also at that I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is a one-time payment, so that forecast is obviously skewed. It's not going to be $1 million.
Even so, Tom, right? The year-to-date actuals is 682 against a line item budget of 400,000.
You want me to mark that as open?
Yes, please. I'd like some clarity on what's driving the variance to plan.
Yeah.
Other questions on this department from other members of the BET?
Yeah, I have one question. So I know, this is a forecast and it might be skewed, but I'm looking at the telephone bill and it looks like the forecast project about 18,000. Now is there payments coming in, or like why is there such a difference between the recommended amount and what's forecasted? I'm looking at line 19.
Can you see it on yours, Vanessa? If not, I can read the numbers to you.
Yes, I'm just trying to look at the numbers of what it was. So I think that one thing that happened is that sometimes most of those bills we do not get by the time that you guys see the actuals.
Okay.
And remember that and that's what I think that, and probably this also answered the other question. Usually when the spreadsheet is generated, it's usually around late September or October, where we really haven't paid the bills from that year, right? Because we have just encumbered that money. And depending on whatever is the utility fee, we pay quarterly or every 6 months. So I think that's why when you see the number, you think, okay, that's what hasn't been the expense, and then when projected, it gave us that big difference. But if you look back, we were last year really on the $35,000. That was the number that was revised, because pretty much we just pay what we are billed for. We do not even hold that contract with purchasing. They do, and it's exactly the same for this year. So there was really pretty much no increase. We are actually $200 less.
Yeah, okay, makes sense. We've heard that response before. I just figured the phone bill, the payments would be more real time, but thank you.
No problem. And I believe really and we're gonna confirm, but I believe that's the same related to the sewer fee.
Yeah, it doesn't make quite as much sense for me for the sewer fee of Vanessa, but if you could check it, because it's so far over the planned budget.
Yes,
This would
check why there'll be the 1 billion is there. The 1 billion is the outliner there.
Yep. Okay.
Vanessa, I'm not sure if you were on when I explained this earlier, but the actuals here and the fiscal 24 actuals in column S do not include encumbrances. So when you look at the actuals and it looks like you're going to come way under, if you have any purchase orders out there, it's not going to be reflected. So that may be a contributing factor.
Okay.
Moving on to operations, total of 2.8% here, $140,000, most of it in overtime, and then a reduction in uniforms and cleaning. This is also an area where they had requested, I believe, 2 hires, and that was subject to the no hire guidance. So anything further on this one, Vanessa, or any board members?
I'm really looking at the increase in wages and salary of 3.5%. Is that because of what's the reasoning behind there?
So the labor contracts, Kendrick, are a base of 2.35% for all the unions across the city. So that's basically the starting point. And then most, but not all individuals also get step increases. And in some cases that can add somewhere between 1 and 1.5% more. So the 3.5 is a combination of the regular 2.35 plus any steps as applicable.
And if I can chime in on that just a little bit, if you look at our org chart, we have a lot more newer hires than senior staff that are still kind of in the pension. So these new hires are going to continue to get step increases every year, where historically DPW has been staff where our average full-time staff member was 20 years. I think our average is now 9 years. So our new employees are going to continue to get step increases for the next foreseeable future.
Thank you. Other questions on this department? Signs and markings. We don't really need road signs in Norwalk, do we?
Only bicycle lane markings.
Well, I was going to ask that, do you cover in your budget, do you cover the bicycle lane markings?
No.
No.
Okay.
No, so
It just sounded good for a second.
I
There
can
you go.
explain, the paving markings, when we pave the roads, come out of capital budget. Okay, because it comes from the project where we're paving the road, we pay for the new paving markings on all paved streets. This money, it is really to refresh some of the fading away marks that we have on the roads, that our own guys can go there and do it. Or sometimes, for instance, at City Hall, if we need to do a refresh on the parking strips here.
So the painting that we do is for crosswalks that's not epoxy based on new contractual paving like Vanessa mentioned, but we do restripe crosswalks and stop bars every year because it's a water-based paint. And depending on the severity of the winter, depends on how much we have to restripe in the spring and fall, in summer and fall.
Would it be unreasonable to ask that this budget comes in flat year over year versus going up 14%?
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Would it be unreasonable to ask that this budget line item comes in flat year over year rather than being up 14%?
We unfortunately, we cannot for
Painful.
2 reasons. The first one, in the last 2 years, we start doing the payment for the Board of Ed schools. So we have an agreement with them because they do not have anyone to do it. They cover part of the overtime of our employees because we do that work over the weekends when the parking lot is empty, but we are supplying the material. So the reason why there is an increase on the supply is because we are buying more paint than we used to be in the past because we have to really do the Board of Ed parking lots. That is actually cheaper for the city to do in-house than to go through a third party. And also, unfortunately, construction supplies continue to increase every year. And that's why we have to, I cannot keep this budget flat because it's really reflecting the numbers of the paint that we buy.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on this department before we move to snow and ice removal? Okay, as it relates to snow and ice removal, I guess I have 2 questions here. I'm trying to track, Vanessa, to your opening remarks where you suggested you were going to keep flat or reduce the salt supply, yet it looks as if it's going up year to year. So I'm wondering if what I don't understand there. And then there's a significant increase in the overtime budget. And again, if we look at being realistic, should we keep that flat as a plan and then address it through contingency if we expect overruns?
So let me address the overtime first. Actually, I know that seems like that we went higher, but actually we went back to what was the year before. That was really the year that we cut it on our overtime after the winter because we knew that we had a little bit of fat after such a mild winter last year. So now we're just bringing it back to what used to be. So that is one thing. Besides that, we are really increasing the amount of service that we are providing to the city. So we are taking care of a few other public buildings, for instance. Sometimes we have to do some work at the libraries. We are cleaning up Washington Street, the Sono area on Saturday and Sunday mornings. And that's why originally we have asked for 2 extra laborers to be able, because there is much more work that we are really doing. And we thought that if we got some 2 extra laborers, eventually the overtime would be able to decrease a little bit. Because we do not have enough staff, we have to work on overtime to be able to keep the same level of service that we have been providing. Now, let me answer the salt. So with the salt, again, the salt is really what we have been gambling the last couple of years. And just to give you guys an idea, a few years ago, the price of the salt was close to $90 a ton. And then what happened is that last year, it came extremely high, the price where it went up to 120.
21.
121, and that's when we did it, we
didn't buy
almost
any?
didn't buy.
No,
We bought, exactly, we didn't buy at all, and we were able to reduce the budget. This year, we ended up buying at 105, so that we saw already a reduction on the commodity. And that's why here we were able to really address the salt, but we need to have at least something in case, like this year we were good until January. And then within 2 weeks, we pretty much use 50% of our storage, right, Chris?
yeah, and right now, we're not planning on purchasing any more salt. We plan to do some infrastructure work to our salt shed. So we're trying to leave our salt shed half empty at the end of this year so we can move the salt from one side to the other. So they can complete that concrete work. But in the past, Tom, and correct me if I'm wrong, we've had differences of opinion of how much we budget for chemicals and overtime when it's depends on the winter. So keep it 200,000 and then go on contingency beyond that, or do we? That's totally up to you. I've seen in my career here, our salt budget be as high as $600,000 and as low as $200,000. And that's up to you guys to make that decision. And again, we're gonna buy salt regardless of what we say tonight here at this meeting, if we need it.
Right. Right. But I want to clarify something I may have misheard you state in your remarks. Because I thought I heard you say right now we're not planning to buy any salt.
Any more salt? Any more salt? We've already purchased salt this year.
Right. So in FY25, you have a plan to spend 0 on salt purchase.
No.
No.
So I'm sorry if I misspoke. I live in winter to winter and you guys are living in fiscal year to fiscal year. So I cannot promise you next year, we're not gonna buy any salt next winter.
What you guys may see is that probably by the end of by June, we may have a leftover on our salt account from this year. And usually what we do is, if depending on the value, is when we come back to see if we're allowed to be rollover, or sometimes we give back. That's what we did last year. I think last year, I forgot the amount of money, but we gave
200.
more. I think that was more, no, just on salt, but I think overall, Public Works, I think that we ended up bringing back like, Tom, I would say that was close to maybe $500,000, right? Between the salt and a few other things that we ended up not spending on our operating budget.
Okay. I might suggest.
I'd like to also
Go ahead.
one thing, Ed, I'm sorry, but
no.
The level of service that they're requiring of us increases every year. If you look at the city's workman's comp for the Board of Ed, a lot of it is teachers walking into the school for whatever reason, not understanding that they live in New England. So we are calling crews in at 4 o'clock in the morning to cover every school every time there's a snow, and for the next 3 days, because we have the refreeze following that. And Parks is similar. We have to salt the footpaths and the stuff we're responsible for. Sorry.
No, I get it. I might suggest to the BET members that, given everything else that's going on with this budget, we leave this as a little bit of an open item. Not saying we're not going to fund it, but really just looking at the end of our deliberations is there any flexibility that we need to ask you for, and then have you address in contingency if we need to purchase more salt. Not saying we're not going to approve what's here, just saying it's a big line item, and there is a little flexibility. So maybe we look at it in different ways when we see the totality of where we come in. Is that acceptable to the other BET members?
Yeah.
Just another thing too is we don't get the salt price for our salt until around September. Vanessa and I have tried earlier this year to get the price, and they won't budge until they're ready to give the price out.
Sure. Okay.
But,
Other questions in this area?
Just have one comment, is that as you consider relative to overtime or full-time people needed to do the Friday, Saturday cleanup at, or Saturday, Sunday cleanup on Washington Street, is that maybe it could be outsourced. So it may end up costing the city a little bit rather than bringing in full-time individuals.
It's a contractual.
Yeah, we have the problem with the union to be able to outsource some of that work, as of now.
It actually says no.
Yeah, we cannot do that because it is unionized, all that work.
I got
it.
Yep.
And. Okay.
Anything else on ice and snow removal or snow and ice removal?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up, Vanessa, so and or Chris, so you're done at 315 so far for this year, you're not buying any more salt, right?
We're not buying any more salt, Tom.
Okay, so that looks like you'll be 135 under, so that's a rollover candidate, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right, moving on to storm drainage.
Now we say that next week we're gonna
Yeah,
have.
yeah, we're gonna have a blizzard.
So it's all gonna
Like
be,
Tahoe, right, Tom, that you told me, 8 feet of snow
we
will
can,
get here.
it's in the record. It's all Tom's fault if we have a
It's
blizzard.
all
next week.
recorded.
Yep.
We're good. All right, storm drainage, I don't see any issue to discuss here, flat. Solid waste, that's up significantly. If I'm not mistaken, that's contractual.
That's all contractual. We don't have anything on. I just want to give a little bit of a feedback. This is our second extension of the contract with Wind Waste. We are finalizing our solid waste plan, and we're gonna issue a new bid for the following year that will be effective as July 1st, 25. So in September, October, we're gonna come in already with the new prices for solid waste. I just want to emphasize that the biggest change that we have seen on these past 2 years is the recycle market, and this is really what really dragged our budget high. Before that used to be a revenue for us, not for us, right, for everyone, but with the way that the recycling market changed, now ended up being a cost. So there is was about $750,000 change overall.
Understood. Any questions here? Okay, let's move on to tree maintenance.
5% or 22 grand on this one. Big one seems to be the last two items, other contractual and machinery. Speak to those, Vanessa?
Sure. So one is the contractual. What happened is that sometimes we do a lot of our tree cutting in-house. But after a certain size, we need to outsource, and we do have a contract with them. Sometimes because of storms, because of projects, and now as part, we do have an arborist that is now identifying some trees can become a hazard to the city. And the size of those trees cannot be handled anymore by our own crew. Our third-party contract is handling, so we realized that we had very little money on that. This year, we have to go for an amendment to the contract to be able to add more funds. We didn't have the funds. We finished the money within 3 months. We ended up getting from different sources. So this request is really based on the actual expenses that we are having now. Because within 3 months, we really finished whatever we request last year, and now we are really projecting based on what we have been using.
The tree maintenance, by the way, is also for all of the city's right of way and public property. It's not simply just for public works work. It's the whole city. And our bucket trucks go up to 75 feet, anything over 75 feet, we have to get a crane. Our tree crews are not permitted to climb, they only do aerial bucket removals. So I cannot tell you that next year our contractual services with Olmsted or whoever it's gonna be, if we get a microburst, that can change by double, or we, spring comes and everything blooms as the way it's supposed to. In a perfect world, we wouldn't spend any money. So if that helps a little bit.
Mhm.
So now, back to the other item, the parts is exactly that. We have seen an increase, although last year we cut it 91 trees, I believe.
We cut
But we
total
came
of
up
298 for the year, but we planted 500, yes.
But we have to trim, and besides that, because we're also starting the transition to be more greener, some of those equipments that we ended up buying are somewhat electrical, so we're also incorporating some of these new costs into that line as well.
Okay.
I have two questions relative to potential liability. First, I think it's great that you're identifying trees that could pose a risk to any of the people of Norwalk. I'm just hearkening back to the case where it was maybe about 10 years ago, where a tree fell on a car on the Merritt Parkway, and I think the state got sued and had to settle for a large sum of money. My other question is relative to the people, these are very hazardous jobs. Do we have any additional, I don't know, liability insurance, or is it all just covered underneath our umbrella in case someone is hurt or potentially been fatally hurt?
Are you talking about our staff or residents?
Our staff.
Our staff is covered under our basic general insurance, which the city self-insured through KERMA, up to $1 million. But we do participate in Arbor Master training and aerial bucket lift training and rigging training. It's a very rigorous training that these guys have to go through to even get on that crew. So there is a lot of training involved, similar to what you would find in like a special service unit with the police department or the fire department. It is specialized work that not the whole garage could do. There are actually only 4 people in our whole group out of 61 that are qualified to do tree work.
And that's why we have to outsource beyond that. That is really the caveat that will allow us to give part of that work to non-union, because it's very specialized and it's after a certain size.
Okay. Thank you. Again, I just want to be sensitive to everybody's time this evening. So any other questions on this department before we move on? There's still a significant amount of things we've got to clear this evening. All right, so let's keep moving, Tom.
Yeah, next is engineering. Not much here. 5% all in salaries, full-time salaries. That's again the 2.35 plus any steps as applicable. Any questions there?
No.
Engineering signalization. Ed, you had asked me to remind you last night. This is the corresponding down that offsets the up in transportation, mobility, and parking that Jim Travers had. Recall the transfer of the 84,000 from DPW to TMP.
Yep, I just want to check one thing there. Yep, the numbers seem to align to what we saw last night, so thank you.
Okay. And then on to disposal, which I think is a similar story to the solid waste, but I will let Vanessa and Chris add any relevant details as they see fit.
Yeah, that's the issue, is that we have like 3 different contracts, so that's why it shows in different lines, but it's exactly the same thing.
Yeah, and then recycling right below it as well. Same similar story. And then moving on to centralized fleet maintenance. This is where the city takes care of and maintains all the vehicles citywide except for the fire department. Nothing notable here, actually reduction in fleet maintenance. So overall down roughly 4% in centralized fleet.
Do you also maintain the Board of Ed's vehicles? If they have
No, I didn't even know the Board of Ed actually had vehicles.
Oh, so that's
All right, and that wraps up ops and public works. We are now moving on to Neil and building maintenance, and hopefully he is still on the line.
So
I'm still
Neil
here.
will be able to go over, and if you guys have further questions, we're here. Thanks, Neil.
Yeah, so we're on the main one right now, Neil, 14,071, overall increase of 5%. 4%, you know.
So if it serves everybody, you'll see there's a common theme among each one of our buildings. It's utilities. They're all going, overall, there's an increase of 9.7% for electric, 6% for water, gas is 6%, and heating fuel 6%. For an average of almost 7% across the board on the utility side for all our buildings. We talked about all the other contractual guarding our contract is going up 3%, but we're also picking up additional buildings in this coming year. As I mentioned earlier, Mill Hill, 3 Belden will be coming online this summer. And we'll also handle Matthews Park, some of the buildings over there. And the other large one was the security common across each account. That's the Orion contract, 3% increase, and then the living wage added up to another 6%.
Yeah. Neil, my one question outside of those is the $18,000 increase in household and janitorial supplies.
Right. Yep.
You know, that's up significantly, not only versus this year and this year's actuals, but the last 3 or 4 years where it's been pretty flat. What's driving an $18,000 increase there?
Cost of the product is up significantly, and use within our buildings is up significantly.
Yeah, so Ed, if you look at some of those actuals, that was during the COVID stretch when the building was, you know, very limited. A lot of people working from home, and it wasn't generally open to the public other than by appointment. So we weren't doing the kids programs at night, the kids music at night in the concert hall, and the chess club down, you know, in the community room and things like that. So there's across the board increase in usage, you know, coupled with the supply. The increase in the supplies as well.
And let me just add to that. When I call everybody, so we could cut one more thing, Neil said, unfortunately, I have to ask for increase. And that was the only increase that he asked me for. He said, I really will get to a point that I will not have paper towel to put in the bathrooms because we are totally off on this budget. And it's true, it's really, if you guys come to City Hall now during the day, most of the staff, I would say 90% of the staff works every day here, what wasn't happening before. We have much more residents coming in, we have programs that is happening, and that's where is all that supply going. But that is kind of very similar to the numbers pre-COVID, like 5 years ago.
Okay. Other questions?
What is other professional services around $500,000?
Let me just, I'm looking to my side here.
It's 5258, you know.
5258.
I think that's for Guardian, that's you guys, right?
Yeah, it is their contract, it's Guardian contract.
So yeah, that's the management side of our contract.
So that's Neil's salary and others.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's our team. Yep.
Got
And buildings is the actual maintenance side of us.
Okay.
And Neil, I realize I had it wrong when I was referring to Sherelle's security. Guardian is you, Orion is the security.
Yeah, right. We manage for the city buildings, most of them, other than the libraries, we manage the Orion contracts.
Okay.
All right, so we'll see, as Neil said, you'll see a common theme. All of the rest of these down the line here are separated by physical facilities. So North Ely, Roosevelt, Franklin, City Hall. Just stop me if anybody sees anything they wish to query, but it's pretty much a similar story for all of these items. And this Belden Ave is the final building management organization. And then we move on to administration for rec and parks.
Yeah, and Belden, we have, again, we don't have Belden online yet, that will be coming on, in this coming year.
Do we know when in the coming year, Neil, will come on?
We're expecting it actually, I think over the next, month or two. So we'll have to see. I have a meeting over there next week with, Jessica Bonashek, so I'll have an update next week, but I think within the next month or two.
Okay.
That's the redevelopment, Neil, that's the
Yeah.
redevelopment that we
Yes, sir.
bought, okay,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom, could we go to line 198? I see a big jump, security systems, 24%.
Yeah, so this is primarily the living wage increase we were talking about with the library. It's the same company, same impact.
Okay, so this is human security, not
Yeah,
security
It's,
system.
it's our manned security. As I was saying, I believe it's a 3% increase on the contract, and the living wage pushed it up another 6%.
Any
But
other
it's-
questions on any of the facilities? All right, then Tom, maybe we should move to recreation and parks.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you, Neil.
Have a good evening.
Thank you very much, Neil.
Bye now.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you.
So we have Rob Stowers here right next to me, and also we have Ken Hughes. So we can go over some of the budget, right, Rob? And I know, Rob, when I ask you guys to reconsider one thing that we would like to have it back. So I'll let Rob start the conversation.
Okay. I don't know if you guys can see me on screen or not.
I got you.
Anyway, as you know, last year we passed our master plan. And our master plan really called for, it's kind of our guide to how we're going to move and manage recreation and parks. And a couple of things were really noted in that master plan moving forward, and that were an increase in certain kind of programs, mostly family and youth programs, and also facilities, an increase in facilities, and which included outdoor and indoor facilities. As a result of that, we moved forward in completing a conversion of our new recreation reservation and scheduling system, which has a back of the house, a really important financial aspect to it as well, in terms of setting fees and having historical collection of revenues and setting the revenues and tracking all the facilities. And in our work with the help of capital funds and grants, we've been able to bring on, and we'll be doing this year, about 20 new pickleball courts. And also we're working with grassroots to bring on a dome bubble that will cover 4 of our courts at Springwood Street Park. And also we've had an uptick in grant funds to improve our playgrounds. So we over the last 2 years, we've been improving playgrounds to the kind of, I think we're on our 10th playground now that we're improving. So all these things, and particularly with the outdoor events and the pickleball courts in that, have brought us to a point where we need certain staffing. And so I'll be describing that in some of your questions. So, I'm ready for your questions. Knowing this, it kind of paints a story because I know there's a couple of things you're gonna be asking me about. So, I'm ready for your questions on our positions.
All right, shall we start scrolling or any questions on?
I think our full-time positions, it shows no increase in positions, but what is important in this whole effort is the very position that controls the scheduling and reservation system was a project position that we desperately need to continue improving our scheduling, our reservations, and collecting of funds. This position is responsible for really collecting about $1.2 million worth of funds. And because of this position in the scheduling reservation system that we have, it's enabled us to do public facing and to increase our revenues. And so this position is very vital. We have talked to the mayor about this position. I think that if we could fund half of this position and maybe hire this position in January on a full-time basis, but support it through our part-time temporary monies until we get to that point. So we're requesting for you to reinstall this position into the budget. We requested in the budget as a full-time $72,000 to $80,000 a year position, and it's vital to our being able to continue the success we've been having. So that would be in full-time. That would be in the full-time category. We would fund the $49,000 for half a year through our full-time wages, part-time wages, and I have the orgs and the objectives. I've sent them to Tom already. He has the orgs and the funding where it would come from. So we're requesting that position.
Okay, and Robert, contrast that position for me versus what looks like a new temporary position or positions at $84,000.
Yeah, this continues the story I've been painting, and the $84,000 is really for what we call either park ambassadors or there'll be park rangers. And there's been significant uptick in areas where we're having pickleball, and in terms of conflicts with permits, reservations. That's just one of the areas that there's been an uptick all around the country, particularly in Connecticut, with the uptick in pickleball. So there's a lot of conflicts, a lot of arguments, a lot of frustration over permits and reservations. And one way to solve this is to have a park ambassador and we have two here that we have requested to tour these parks and make sure that things are in order. But not only that, we've had a lot of conflict with residents keeping our park codes. There's a lot more dogs in the park, which is prohibited. So there's a lot of reasons. At our special events, the Common Council members have asked that we have staff at our public events to keep down any disturbances, if there's drinking, whatever going on. And we've been trying to put some of our staff out there. We have one person in particular we put out there, but we really want to more formalize either park rangers or park ambassadors And it just depends on whether they're ambassadors or park rangers, whether or not we can arrive at an agreement with our police. And I talked to the former chief about this when I first came here, and we were putting together a protocol, but then he left. It needs to be either park ambassadors or park rangers, but either way, we need eyes on the park. And so we figured at least we would have a pilot where we would have part-time staff out there during this period of time.
Okay. Thank you. And as it relates to the your comment on the other position that you're looking to fill, I think, Tom, we can leave that as an open item that we can take under advisement when we look at the totality of the budget.
Okay. And not only totality of the budget, look at the it's one of the major operating positions in rec and parks. And rec and parks have really went to public facing, reservations, scheduling. We have a kind of an outdated system here called RecTech. And no one was really in charge of it. No one really had a handle on it. And so we didn't have that kind of position because people were they were muddling through, basically. And so sometimes our revenues, Ken can tell you, sometimes we need revenues for which accounts they went to. We had to work with the comptroller's office to figure out where different things were going. It was a mess. So that's why we did away with that, brought in this reservation system, but we have to have someone to manage it and administer it, because it's not only the conversion is completed, but it takes a person to continue troubleshooting, continue adjustments, and continue to update our public facing. And also a lot of our metrics come from there for the mayor's dashboard. So it's a very important position.
Understood. Understood. It's just a lot of different things to try and balance across the city.
I understand.
Other questions for Robert on the administration portion of the budget? Okay, let's maybe move to social programs, Tom.
Yep. Social programs, 3%. Looks like it's all mostly in one line item. The other contractual that is up quite a bit.
That's actually our
Percent. Well,
good evening, Mr. Chair. Sorry. Yeah, so that's actually our fireworks contract for the 4th of July show. It went up to 47,000 from 43.5.
Okay. Okay. And the reason I forget the reason it shows a 0 for this year. Did we cancel fireworks due to weather, or is it just the bill hasn't hit yet? I just can't remember back that far what the weather was like.
Well, Mr. Abrams, we had the fireworks. The one that got canceled was the one in Rowayton, because we moved ours to the day that Rowayton was holding. We actually, I think, a record breaking in attendance this past year.
Okay. Forgive my faulty memory. That must just mean that we haven't.
I only remember because I struggle a lot to make that call, Mr. I was traumatized. I said to them that this is the day of my job that I don't like, because I had to make that call.
Thank you.
Ken, that begets a go. So where are the actuals for 24, or will you prepay the one for this upcoming year? So you have a revised budget of 43.5, but nothing has been paid so far this year.
It should have been no, we do prepay. We do prepay.
Okay, so
we have to pay a week before the show, otherwise it won't load the barge.
Okay, so for the 43.5 that we have in there, you'll cut that check sometime in June for the. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, got it.
Yep. Okay. And then next year it's up to 47.
That's right.
Okay.
All right, got it. All right, culture programs is flat. Nothing to discuss there. Sports program is actually down $1,000, or just under 1%. Physical fitness is down 5,600, or 6.2%. And board members, stop me if I'm going too fast, but I don't see any major things to discuss at this point. Playgrounds are flat. Veterans Committee, this is another offset. Recall when we were covering the city clerk the other night, under general government, that there was a part of the increase on the chief of staff was related to this, veterans. The 17 or $18,000 used to be in Park and Recs, or Rec and Park, sorry, and was transferred to city clerk. So the up that we saw the other night is offset by this down here. And on to your big one, Ken, grounds facilities. Where do we see? Scroll down. That is only, well, less than 1%. It's up. It's $25,000. Just one, just a handful of items here to discuss. If anybody has any questions.
Now it looks like it's the increase is driven by the salary increases and the step increases. Yep.
Correct.
All good?
I have two comments. One is, Tom, do you think we could get the subtotals for the first part of DPW and then maintenance and then Parks and Rec to see what the year-over-year increase is? Just broken out. And I think I would like to say that the budget being up 926,000 is really up another 100, because it's offset by the transfer out of traffic, and then there was another decrease of 16,000. So the actual increase year over year for Parks and Rec, for DPW is, I don't know, maybe it's more like 3.4% or something like that. But I just want to point out that $100,000 difference.
Okay, so the way we kind of look at this is 4 major units, right? Operations, DPW, building management, public works. You want subtotals on those 4?
Please. And
Okay.
just what the year, and we could do that next time.
It's very simple for me to throw it on this spreadsheet and get it back out to you, but tomorrow, not tonight. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, absolutely, that's fine. And then if you can maybe compare it apples to apples by taking out those two departments from the base.
Veterans and the
veterans and the stuff that moved to
the
transportation.
signalization.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's about $100,000.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good with grounds and facilities then at this point.
I think so.
Okay.
Thank you.
On to Calf Beach ops. Minuscule, less than $9,000, 1.5%.
And that's contractual,
Yeah,
Tom, for
it's all-
parking contract.
And that's Laz, right, Ken? Just like the rest.
Yes, yep.
Okay.
Veterans Park maintenance, flat.
Wow.
Shea Island, flat. Heritage Matthews, flat. Photo or farm, flat. Look at these guys.
Mhm.
Garage, flat. And finally, Cranberry Park, or not finally, I thought it was the end. How is the mansion renovations going, Ken, by the way, just out of curiosity?
Oh, good. We're at design phase for all 4 projects. So hopefully we'll be out construction bid within a month and a half, 2 months.
Are you covering that, or is Alan, or a combination?
Alan's taking the lead. I'm support.
Okay. Ryan Park is actually down $9,000, 36%. Washington Park, 10,000 or 40%. And the final veterans line, I'm not sure why that's not with the other veterans one, but I think that's a Munis mapping challenge. But in any case, we are back down at the total here, roughly $1 million or 3.2%.
Yep. Okay. Questions on any of those from anyone?
Relative to revenue, when there are parking fees charged at Calf Pasture Beach, does that go to Parks and Rec or does that go to parking?
So the actual parking fees they go into the general fund. The fines and the tickets, they go to LAS, Parking Authority.
Yeah, but your revenue line items, Ken, I recall seeing there's like general parking and then there's specifically one for out of town individuals too. right?
So we have about 6 or 7 different parking structures. We have ones for volleyball leagues, we have parking for softball leagues, we have landlocked residents, we have residents who don't have a car registered here. So there's a wide range of variables in terms of our parking fees.
There's total transparency on all your variable metrics there, right?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
But all of those fees collected go into the general fund?
Correct.
Okay.
And I just want to make a quick note on the position that Robert talked about. This past Friday, we actually opened our camp registrations, and I believe we took in 300 and something thousand within a 24-hour period. Yep, due to the ActiveNet software. And having that position currently working on the software while registration was ongoing. So if we didn't have that position, the system would have crashed and I don't know what we would have done.
Over 570 youth were registered, and we still have 2 months to go.
But we have a lot of camps that sold out on that day.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, if nobody else has any other questions, I would like just to do a final remark if you let me.
I will, but let me just hold the BET to see if there's no final question. And Vanessa, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So again, I think that after you guys see the numbers, you can see that we really came extremely conservative in this year's budget. I understand that everybody sees DPW, we have the biggest budget, but you know, we are the backbone of the city. We have a lot to maintain. I would say that all the operations include like snow, trees, parks, potholes, and so on. Also, as I said, I think that our staff is doing a fantastic job because everybody is doing even beyond of what we do to be able to maintain the same level of service. So we do understand that we're going through a very crucial moment. We really also want to show you guys that we are in collaboration with that, and we really look back. We spent hours and hours trying to see where we could come with the most flat that we could get. But we do appreciate if you guys can take in consideration this position that Rob is asking to put it back, particularly because this is one of those positions that bring us more revenue. It is a way also to bring more money to the general fund. And the idea is to even increase all our recreation programs that we have for the city. So the only way that we can bring more revenue is investing a little bit. And we believe that on the long term, definitely this position will be paid. Besides that, I also want to let you guys know that within the DPW umbrella, we brought over $8 million in grants last year of projects. And that sometimes we don't bring to your attention. It comes through some approval of the projects and common council. But, you know, we are really trying to minimize the impact on the residents on the way that we are spending the money. So any opportunity that we find, we're looking for it. And, you know, like $8 million, it's quite a lot of time. And we were able to really fulfill a lot of our capital needs through those grants. So I also want to thank you all your guidance. I appreciate that you guys understand. I appreciate all the questions that you guys make. It's because of you that make us look even deeper on what we are doing and make us more efficient. So I just want to thank you for all your time. And of course, Tom, because I drive Tom crazy, you know, we start in October and we go until May, but you know, I call him 50 times a day. When he calls me back and said, you need to cut, I don't talk to him for another 3 days, but here we are. But thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. And thank you to your team. Mr. Mayor, any closing remarks?
You're on mute, Mayor. Oh.
I was trying to unmute for some reason, it wouldn't work, but no, I'm very impressed with all the budget submissions that have come in. I know that like Vanessa just mentioned, it's a very tough year. We're tossed between giving services that perhaps we'd like to have versus keeping our taxes low. As you know, the tax base is going up significantly this year based on reval. I mentioned that earlier at the beginning. And we have to do everything we can to ease that pain that some of our residents are going to feel. A lot of people live on fixed incomes. A lot of people, people start talking about being overtaxed and not being able to afford to live in Norwalk. We don't want to force people out of Norwalk. We have people that have lived here all their lives. We have wonderful neighborhoods, and we'd like to keep it that way. But again, sometimes you have to tighten the belt. And we started a couple of years ago talking about wants versus needs. It's always nice to have the wants when it can happen, but the needs are critical. You have to give the needs, and I really appreciate all the work that Tom and Agnes has done, the work that the Board of Estimate and Taxation has done, taking your nights and evenings and looking at these things and figuring out where we might be able to save a few bucks, but also our department heads who really met the challenge that I threw out at them this year. And for the most part, everybody met that challenge, and we've still got a little bit of work to do.
Understood. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With that, can I get a motion to adjourn, please? Thank you, Ann. All in favor? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Have a good
We are
night.
adjourned. For the BET members, we will reconvene again next week on Monday.
We're going over finance, so come at me.
We will.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.